So this concept, we all agreed with our panel, is based on some premises. Okay, we're going to come right to the chase. Number one, is it true or false that for hospices, achieving competitive advantages with people requires recruiting and developing people that have character, capabilities, and capacity to invest in themselves and in their hospice? True or false? True, we all agree. Yeah. The second thing is development of people, professional and personal.
Yes.
We agree.
Yes.
Do we agree that our organizations themselves, things that we help lead, our culture, our office environment, our systems, have to be attractive places for great people to want to plant themselves and grow? Yeah. Do we agree? Okay. So, we're going to talk about how we build investor employees, and our panelists are going to help us with these specifics. Now, part of it is we're going to leave here with specifics, okay? So, let's talk about the first thing about building. Building begins with a desire to build, and before you build up, you have to build down, right? You have to clear the land, you have to dig, but you also have to have a blueprint and a big picture. And I'm sorry y'all are having to turn around, but I know we all did these together, so you know this topic. So, for the panelists first, what works with selecting, onboarding, training, retaining, motivating? What do you look for? How do y'all start when you hire people that you want to be able to invest themselves? Where do you start? Where do you find great people?
Are you looking at me? You want to start? You want ladies first?
Well, what's worked for us has been referrals because we at least have an advantage that the people that work for us we love. And they're not going to send people that, you know, that their reputation is going to suffer over. So that's been the best for us.
I think being the founder of the company, I mean, I've done a little bit of everything, as you do. I work, you know, still working a lot, probably more than I should, but 7 days a week as you get started, unfortunately, but that's just what you do to get things going. I think a large part for me, as I sit back and I listen to feedback from the team, from folks that have been part of our organization, a large part of why they were attracted was me sharing the vision and my why, and wanting to build a better model, if you will. And so that you can't let it drone on and on and on, but to share some of your heart with where you want to go and where you know you can go, to know the business well enough to know exactly what you want to do and how you're going to accomplish that, and let folks see that play itself out. It gains trust. And so I think that's the large part of what I found to be successful. And I also stubbed my toe in things, you know, along the way, just learning. A lot like what Andrew was saying, if you get going down the path, I mean, you got divergent things that you think you know how to get from here to there, but you don't always have the answer right there and then, but you figure it out along the way. But I think from a successful, for us, that's what's been successful, is a lot of different things, but first it began with that basic building block, setting that foundation of sharing the why.
Thank you.
You know, the work that you can do in networking with other organizations, at least for us, has been really important. You know, we're a solid organization. We have so much to learn. And so it's been fun for us to learn just from other people, nationally, locally. So I would encourage you to do that. We do that a lot. Share it wide open. Maybe not with all our competitors, but generally, and we really love to be able to learn. There's so many things that we can take back and improve. And one thing that we've done that we're about a year into it, maybe 8 months, is focus on leadership development. Maybe we're behind the 8 ball on it, but we hired a director, leadership development. She reports to me. And the focus there is on that middle management. I appreciate what Andrew said, and it's something we really believe, that those folks right in the middle, what a brutal role. Yeah. They get, you know, all the heat from above and all the heat from below. It's like a terrible fire, you know, heat shield that they are. But the focus that we have is how do we, you know, identify, whether you use Berkman, you can use PI, you can use different things for competencies. What are the competencies that we feel are valuable? We in the Corn Ferry used to be Lominger competencies. We use those too. What are the competencies that are really important for those managers? How do you attest to it? And then how do they individualize a development plan so that they're not moving up it, we get them out. And if they are moving up it, we're going to move to a place of lower turnover and higher productivity. So, but to jump on that, I think that aspect, it starts and stops with that middle management focus.
So where's the best hunting ground? You have referrals from your own folks, setting the vision. Andrew, you mentioned there's platforms to help screen through websites and things like that. Do y'all use websites to help screen initially? Or do you just bring them in and interview and you get a sense of
Talk from a perspective of used to and now what we do, if that's going to be helpful. I mean,
best practices that you think are best?
well, we used to not do that, but now we do that through Productive Index, and that's been really a game changer for us because it helps us set a pathway. It helps us in so many different ways. Initially, as the guy writing the checks, I mean, that was presented to me. I'm like, oh, but then the big sell for me was taking folks that have been with the organization for a while, that are loyal, that want to increase their learning and their responsibilities and advance. It gives you a pathway to say, here's this person's bents and strengths. How do we get there? Chad doesn't have to think, or a leader doesn't have to think, spend a week figuring out how to get there, all the steps. That pathway's given to you basically based on strengths and science. So that's been very helpful for us.
So it sounds like you've got to make sure they've got capacity for growth.
Yes, of course.
And then you got to make sure they got a desire for growth. That's just like hard to gauge, isn't it?
It is.
Is it gut?
But I think that's through both the professional and the personal development of that person as you get to know them and what their desires and goals and often I ask, if you could just create your own dream job, what would that be? And so that's been a couple of really great opportunities for us because I've been able to do that in our organization, for people, taking a social worker that's now a director of HR. So it's just things like that allow you some creativity.
You mentioned a website. What was the name that you used to help screen?
Well, Predictive Index is what we use now.
Predictive Index? Anybody else use?
Mentioned that.
That's what y'all use.
We're familiar with it. We're flirting with it. We haven't used it yet.
Okay. Does anybody else use a great sort of initial screening tool?
We do. We use the system iSIMS.
iSIMS?
iSIMS, which does all of our screening, and it's developed based on the role. So they took a lot of data from managers and said what the true characteristics, and then it tells you if they recommend or not. Breaks it down into their strengths, their weaknesses, and their situational elements, where depending on what situation and how they'll typically respond, and gives you coaching elements as you're hiring that person. You can present to them what their strengths are, and then you're going into the situation where you can tease out how will they really perform in those situational elements, and how can you try and tease out positives of that.
Kim, how do you spell that?
It's ICISM.
Can y'all hear it? Everybody got it?
Oh, sorry, ICIMS, sorry. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, ICIMS.
So y'all use it, but you don't have all that functionality of the cool coaching stuff and all that. Yes, what do y'all use?
We use something called the Hartman Profile, and it's pretty fantastic. It's from Steve Byram, who's out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. He's really got it honed into, it's not a personality test that you're doing. It's a way to predict someone's ability to make good decisions, high stress, low stress situations, which is really what our workforce is all about. Someone in a home by themselves, they've got to be able to make great judgment calls. And if they can do that, if we can predict that or find people who are good at making those calls, then you're going to end up hopefully in a better spot. And so we've been using that for the last while, and it's surprising how when we get that a part of their application, we're finding trends and being able to say yes or no really quickly. It's saving a lot of time on who even to interview.
Right.
And it's kind of weird.
I think that it's the only system I know that measures judgment. Why you would smoke dope or not smoke dope. I mean, good decisions, because one can put you out of business.
Yes.
I mean, you kill a patient,
Right.
give him 50 times the I mean,
Yeah.
and since most of our work's done autonomously, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely.
That's been the big
And
win for
low
us.
cost.
Yeah, that's been the big win for us is just that gain of time, those gaps that you win back, that you're not spending time trying to, oh no, is this person going to be the next?
Yeah.
It also showed us as an organization our weaknesses of whereas we bring new people into the culture, what we need to do differently, because we can be very hard on people. And so, knowing that our expectations are very high, so then when other people come in, we can manage what that looks like and bring them in and balance our team out, which I thought was really fascinating.
And honestly, a lot of people will put information on their social media. So I'll go there first and look at their Facebook and can weed them out pretty quick, I mean, LinkedIn, you know, I mean, people are really open on social media.
Well, I'm glad my MySpace is gone.
So as far as recruiting, Emily, you love for employees to recommend other employees.
Yes.
Do you incentivize those employees if you end up hiring? Do you get paid bounties? How do you do that?
Sometimes we will. You know, a lot of times people just love where they work, and they just want their friends to be there too. So there's not a lot of, you know, hey, what are you going to give me for that? You know, they just they really like their job, and they want, you know, other people to like their job. You know, and we've had a lot of success with that.
We do that as well. I mean, but we do incentivize because, you know, my personal philosophy to the staff is I'd rather pay you guys because more often than not, they're not going to put somebody, they're not going to put their name out there attached to somebody if this person, they know they're not quality character of what we're trying to build, because I'd rather give them the money than Indeed.com. No Indeed representatives here.
Anyone else to give bounties to their employees? Okay.
Bounties.
I'm sorry, bounty sounds horrible.
Scalps.
Yeah.
Especially us Native Americans, you know.
One second, yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, we don't use like a referral bounty or anything, but I used to go through Indeed by posting an ad, you know, those websites, and then just wait for resumes to come in and screen, phone call, etc. But what's been working better is actually paying for a subscription where I have access to all of the resumes, and then I can just kind of pick and choose who I want to call. And it sounds better when I'm recruiting them and calling them directly versus the other way around. So that was one other idea that worked.
So we recruit, you can screen based on capabilities. Sometimes you can look at qualifications. You can gauge character by looking at their social media and hopefully friends. How do you gauge in interviews the character? I mean, what kind of leading questions? How do you drill down? I mean, you give them the vision, but I could try to snow you. How do you smoke me out? Yes, and then, yeah, you, Mr. Turk, what you got?
I was just going to say, interviews are a crapshoot at best.
Yes.
I remember the advisor I had for grad school talking about this and saying they're not worth a damn, and I tend to agree. So I think by the time you get to the interview, oh man, you already got to be 80% of the way there. This just makes sure they don't drop it.
Yep.
So you got to do all this in advance. You really do.
So Chad, you had a point along those lines.
Well, it's been an evolution, you know, not having a lot of resources of a 1100 ADC hospice. When you're at 10, you do a lot of things differently, you know, and so it was a lot of that, just sharing that. But it's really changed, and it's our focus is more scientific, you know. There's those leading questions based on a test that's sent out to them. It's very similar to what she was saying. I mean, you know, it's science. This company's been around since 1955, and so they've dealt with thousands of people. So they can give you sort of those preemptive questions that you can ask to discover those gaps before you even get to the face-to-face. So you're able to, nope, not a good fit for our culture. Oh, fantastic fit, bring them in.
Yeah.
I like to bring them in after I've talked to them on the phone, because you can see a totally different person when you bring them in. There was one time, and I use the scientific, you know, gut theory. You know, if my gut says there's something wrong, it's generally right. We had a guy come in that this handsome guy was wearing a suit for a job that didn't require a suit, and you know, answered all the right questions and polite. But I just, you know, I was telling Debbie, there's something wrong. He was like kind of confident, but more cocky. So, I mean, I immediately didn't really care for him. But I told Debbie, and she's like, I kind of like him. And so I went home that night and I looked on the Oklahoma Supreme Court network that it's free. You know, you get on there, and I was like, I knew there was something wrong with this guy. There was like a protective order, assault and battery charges, and I was like, yes. There's my scientific version.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Trust the gut.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Does anyone use like LinkedIn and try to actually target specific individuals from other companies?
Done
I'm
that
thinking,
too.
okay,
Yeah,
good. I'm
done
not
that
the only
too.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you use LinkedIn, you hone in on them, and then you go after them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Chase them down, try to steal them.
Okay. Is he the only one that tries to steal somebody else's employees? No? Right? It's just part of the deal, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
You're leveraging other people.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Best ideas are the what? The borrowers, right?
yes,
I'm going to add a different perspective too. I think when it comes to recruiting, it really, particularly for leadership, it starts several years advance with your own employee pool. Probably 85% or so of our leaders come from internal. The external ones usually get eaten alive and spit out. So what you do is identify the folks, because as a nurse, I can tell you we're not taught about finances. We're taught how to misread them. So with your nurses who become leaders, you have to train that. So there will be low-level managers or others that I'll say, hey, come with me. I'm going to meet with a home health agency that we want to do a contract with. Like, really? Yeah. I want you to hear it. I want to talk to you afterwards. We do things. I've got a palliative doc that doesn't know palliative from anything else, and so I've got work. So if you do those things, you have eyes on them, listen to what they say in meetings, etc. You're interviewing them 2-3 years before something opens up, and that's really important too.
along the lines of retaining. So let's say Casey looks at my LinkedIn and I'm a great knocking out person, but I work for Chad, right? Chad, how do you keep me from getting sniped away and going over to there? What do you do? How do you keep great people?
Well, I think for me, a lot of that is just to know our market and know what other folks are paying. And again, just from some of the other shares have been, it's not always about money.
Yep.
It's about, futuristic ability to, to move up in the company, to take on more things, to be entrusted with other things. So I think it's, I'm not going to win on all those, but I can be proactive and know my folks and know what their trigger points are, so I can, be preemptive, so he doesn't, come to Dallas and steal all my folks, or at least try to. I mean, I can't prevent everything, because there's a certain amount of things you can control, and then the rest of it you got to let go, because you're just not in control. I mean, people are going to leave. They're going to leave. If it's all about this, then they're always going to leave for that.
Emily, Patrick, how do y'all keep your folks from getting?
Well, I think, most people, and, everything that I've read and my experience is that people want to be appreciated. It's not always about, give me a pay raise, give me a title change. They just want to be appreciated and feel like they're being invested in too. Something that recently has started, Mark is doing a finance class for anyone that wants to attend. You're not, penalized for not attending. But every couple of weeks he'll have, a finance topic, and we've had, a sellout crowd in the conference room, and people really enjoy it. In fact, in preparation for this, I sent out a survey and asked them, what makes you feel like an investor rather than just an employee? And a lot of them said, Mark's finance class, meditation classes, because I do meditation twice a week. It's 15 minutes, and people get to have a break for 15 minutes twice a week, and we started doing like challenges at the office. So currently we have a step challenge going on. So if people feel like they're being invested in, they want to stay and they want to be a part of it. And other people throw in ideas. We had a comfort zone challenge, opportunities to get out of your comfort zone, and just had a lot of good feedback, because you want work to be fun too and engaging, and they love it.
Tell them about the stickers.
Oh yeah, the stickers. Oh, the stickers. Okay, so if you complete the challenge, you get a cup. It's just one of those little 32-ounce tumbler things, and we have a creative director that is awesome that actually did this stuff, and he will create these stickers to put on the cup. And like we had a comfort zone challenge with a couch on it, and it says comfort zone challenge. And then we had a gratitude challenge where you write, like 30 things a week that you're grateful for over 12 days, and they all have to be different. And then we had December random acts of kindness. You got to do random acts of kindness for different people, 12 opportunities, and you get all these stickers, and people. I mean, it's like kids, you just, who doesn't like a sticker, I mean, yeah.
Patrick, how about you? How do you hold on to greatness?
Absolutely, these sorts of things. I'm just going to rapid fire 4 things we do that I think are pretty cool that are helpful. We don't really refer to us as a company. We're a family or an organization. That's a big deal. We have recognition awards that are all determined and handled and awarded locally among our 16 sites, and we raise money that if it's raised in your market, it stays there. So if it's raised in Ludington, it's spent in Ludington. And the team has the ability to determine, for quality of life stuff, which patients or families or even team members that goes to. So this is all a big, and then the other thing that we did is for the HR department, last year I had them go to each site and just spend a day celebrating the team. Everybody got a gift basket. We raffled off some things, including time off, etc. They got a personal thank you from the folks in HR, from leadership. They had an executive at least at each one. That was really cool. And sorry, there's a fifth, one other. Our leadership training, one of them last year, we had everyone there handwrite 5 thank you notes to other staff. So there were 500 thank you notes handwritten that went out the next day. It was really, those are little things, but it changes it. We don't feel like a big impersonal whatever. We're family.
To that point, it's those handwritten notes. I mean, I've walked into an office now of one of my leadership team, and a note that I'd sent to him 2 years ago is poked up on the bulletin board. So it's just like, you kept that, but yeah, they kept it.
What else works? Like food, like describe food. So it's not just like cookies in the break room. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, having snacks in the break room, bringing in lunch, having potlucks, doing a random.
There's always chocolate at home.
Thank you. There's an old one? Yes.
We did kind of a fun thing that we've never done before, but it went over really well with our staff. We have an employee engagement committee, and this year we got 5 elf on the shelves. We have 5 locations, and so each location had their own elf. And then we have a company Facebook page for just our team of employees. And so it kind of became a competition, like they would kind of put the elf up in a different position and like leave a note. And I was amazed at how creative people got with it. And then they'd post a picture on Facebook, and then the other sites would want to one-up them. And so it turned into this war of like elf on the shelves and like the craziest positions. And they had them wrapped up in casts, they had them crutches and like this thing. But it was kind of fun because they had a lot of fun with it. And it was just a good example of a way to get people engaged in a different way. And we had like the best feedback about that little thing, just getting 5 elf on the shelf. And they were like the Dollar Tree ones, not the real advantage.
What else works?
I have a few things I want to add. We, sure, a lot of people celebrate birthdays, but we celebrate at IDG each time we meet. Whoever is celebrating a birthday that month, but we do birthday like bonus checks. And then there's a quarterly like morning of renewal where we have an actual person who puts together like a fun activity right before we have our staff meeting. And that's always fun because it engages everybody and makes it more of a less like work-oriented for that morning. It's more about fun. We do outings like the escape the room, team building things. And then really easy is whenever I notice, if there are certain people doing something above and beyond for a patient or for somebody else at work, it's so easy now with our iPhones to send gift cards. Like I have the Starbucks app, and everybody loves, coffee, and I'll just send could be $10, $25, and it goes directly into their account, into their phone. They download it, and it's there to use with a little message. Thank you for your hard work recognized. But little things like that makes a big difference. Like you said, it doesn't take that much time for me to send that text, but it means a lot to them.
One thing I think we do that is neat too is we have meetings with Michaela. So Michaela, as the executive director, will take time out of her busy day and go to each site and sit down for an hour or an hour and a half and just kind of open it up to the staff and be like, what's going on? What questions do you have? What can I, what do you want to talk about? And so the staff really, I think, attend it really well, and she might not always know the answer, but then she'll bring it back to whatever manager might, have the answer, and then we'll follow up on that and get back to them.
And to me, that's the secret sauce. It's just when, and I know it's kind of funny too, is when people feel like they have a voice, that really the top's coming, and they can feel that humility and that actual genuine concern for their welfare. That goes a long ways.
Yes. A lot of these are similar to some of the things that we do. We also had this year have our top administrative team had reached out to all of the staff and said, hey, anybody who wants to invite me to come along with you and talk about people getting way outside their comfort zone. They walk a day or a half a day in my shoes. And surprisingly, we really thought there'd be a much greater desire, but I think it's that it's a different concept for many people. Mm-hmm. There are some that embrace it and some are kind of still very tentative. Mm-hmm. One of the other things that we put out there, you think of kudos and people want to be recognized and truly just having somebody say, hey, that really appreciate what you did or nice job. We have a little form that's on their phone they can fill out for any staff member and just shoot off a little message. A copy goes to Human Resources and to their supervisor. So if I say, hey, did a really good job with, or I really appreciated that and that little bit really, really impacts.
Absolutely.
And we do the kudos. I have a box in the nurse's station, and I look through this box, and they can also email me. But we also have the parking situation gets a little hairy at our care center. So there is each quarter we have a patient unit meeting. All 4 care centers get together. We have 2 different meetings. You attend which one you can, and if you've won your star of the quarter, if you've gotten the most votes or the most kudos from your co-workers, and you get a parking spot right up front, so no one can park in it, and it's just yours. And for Christmas, I started really early, but I have about 30 employees there at that care center, and I hand wrote a letter, and I kind of kept a little bit of everything that just a really good thing someone's done, or really something they're really good at, and they really loved a handwritten card.
All right, so what I'm hearing is it takes effort, right? I mean, an employee sees a piece of trash and complains about the piece of trash. An investor in the company, somebody that owns their work, picks it up, right, because they care. But leadership matters here, doesn't it? Last year, we had a session that Seth helped facilitate on millennials. And what's it like trying to recruit, retain, and motivate that age person versus others? And part of this collusion was wanting to be part, that group has to feel like they need to be part of something just greater than a 9-to-5 or a job. They want to feel that the organization is making strides to help this community, or whether there's more of an altruistic aspect there. So my question is, all these ideas sound like they apply to every age and every gender type employee. Am I right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of this, Starbucks, a lot of those things, even applications that might be more web oriented, for the older employee, are they motivated by the same type things? Because what we heard last year was some of the older employees weren't as interested in attaching themselves to an organization that was necessarily more altruistic than others. They just wanted a paycheck.
Right.
That was yes, sure.
I think it's important for the supervisor to get to know their team members. I mean, I think everybody's different. Like we fill out forms. It's called All About Me each year. The staff fills it out, and it's like, what's important to you? How do you want to be recognized? I have one who, all I have to do is send her an e-card, and she's had the same ones up on our board for 4 years. But there's others that are like, please, sweet Jesus, do not name me in a staff meeting. But if you want to send me a personal note, and then others say, I want public recognition. Right. So I think it's a matter of really getting to know what makes them tick. Yes. Yep. And do I want to build a candy bar, or do I want to be called out at a staff meeting? Some would rather take a bullet. Others find that to be the most valuable thing. So I think it's just a matter of the supervisors getting to know them.
I think that's a huge point, right? Okay. You're nodding like you agree? Okay. All right. So we're talking about how to celebrate great people, but great people aren't great all the time, right? So what works as far as coaching and correcting or terminating? I'll start with the panelists. How do you identify when somebody needs to be corrected, and what do you do about it if you want them to stay part of your team?
We have standards for performance, so it's easy to tell when someone's out of them what our model is. And what our CEO, Bob Cahill, had counseled me on a lot of years ago, and I really appreciate his analogy, is if you don't tell them that they're not making you happy with their performance, that's shame on you. And if you get to the point where you just fire them, they never had a chance to improve. And so he said, you got to put the ball in their court. You have to sit down and be really honest, brutally honest, But you do it because you care about them, you care about the work, but you say, this is what I expect, this is what I see. You need to decide. I'm gonna give the ball to you, and you decide if you want to do it or not. And that's been incredible. I'm continually doing that, but that's really important. And then if they do want to leave, it's their choice.
But it's harder to know your employee and then have to terminate them, because then as soon as you know them better, it's almost easier if they're a piece of inventory. Or is that just me? Right? So when you invest yourself in a person, correcting them has to be that way, but terminating them is that much more painful.
I think though, if you are very clear with expectations up front in training, this is what's expected, then when you meet with them about them not meeting those standards, it is fairly easy. I mean, it's more black and white. It's really clear what they have to do to change that performance. And
you've been honest with the dialogue, they know it's coming.
Yep.
And you know when you're not doing a good job.
Right. So we implemented quarterly one-on-ones with all managers and executives to meet with all staff that report to them at a minimum of quarterly to go over those things. So it's not, I mean, you stay on top of those things a little easier when you're meeting with people one-on-one more frequently. It takes more time, and all of us were like, how are we in the world are we gonna do this with all of these people? But it really isn't. The staff have really responded positively to that. They like it. They like that feedback, good and bad.
We had something fun we did with clinicians. I say it's fun, they like it. But we told them what the visit productivity was.
Right.
So we'd print out, we're old. We'd print it literally on paper, and then wherever the lowest one at the line was, we draw a line with a permanent marker. So they failed, they passed, we just posted, never addressed it, never said anything. And they would self-correct. We don't do it now because it's all electronic. We should go back to it. The bottom feeders would just get eaten alive, but I didn't have to say a thing.
Yep.
It was impressive to watch. Let them do it.
I think if I put it on the behavior rather than the person, that is always helpful. And I think one of my special gifts is being able to deliver, not so great information to someone with, with compassion and care. And, I don't think we do anyone any favors by, sugarcoating it, You can say something unpleasant in a respectful way. And most people appreciate it, and some people really don't know the depth of their misbehavior or how much it's affecting, other people, so.
People always have bad days, right? Or days that aren't so great. So you look at that, and then if another one happens, then you think, okay, that you notice that, but then then the trend starts to develop. Obviously, you can set expectations all day long, and that's very important because you have to communicate that. But I think giving grace where grace is needed. We've got some staff. I mean, we're a fairly small organization. We're 125, 130 folks, and just life outside of the walls of the office, happen. We've got cancer survivors, we've got different things, and so I think you have to be aware of those things and be compassionate for your folks. But then also, new thoughts have been presented to me lately, but you can't tolerate the folks that are always interrupting and setting a bad tone for everybody else, because it's unfair to the other folks on the team.
Yes.
So it's get to know them. Spend time with them, but then if need be, I was listening to a podcast on the way down from Flagstaff before the conference. Call them out. I mean, if you have to, sometimes in public, so the rest of the team knows that you're not going to tolerate that, and that's not what we're trying to set as an example in the organization.
So I'm raising my hand for Kim Darden to share something that we implemented just last year.
Well, I would say there's a couple things I wanted to share. Is that we do stay interviews with all of our team members. We want to know why they're still here, what we're doing well, what we can improve upon. Sometimes it's uncovering dynamics that are going on between different disciplines that they haven't felt comfortable to bring up maybe to their leader. Right. And then supporting the supervisors or managers to build on that and to do more rounding with their team members. Then the second thing, because we had a process in place, we're a large healthcare system, it was painful to move somebody out of the organization. It was extremely painful, and it was very time consuming, and supervisors and managers, it was just the daunting task, and so it was painful for us to move them through that, because the longer you do that, the more it destroys your team. People will work hard for only so long, but they will not work hard to suck up for someone else who's not doing their job. And so it's been a learning curve, but we've done it very successfully. But we did a lot of training with our leaders on how to coach when they're performing well and when you need to correct, how to grow people to the next level professionally, and then how to move them out quickly. So basically we adopted an I commit day or a choice day. If you've coached them and you've corrected them and they're not performing, you sit down and say, here's the expectation, and you need to go home and decide if you want to continue to work here, because that expectation is not going to change. Yep. And if you decide that you don't, we'll pay out your 2 weeks notice or your month notice, whatever your notice is required for your level of role. And if you choose to come back, you have to help develop the work plan that we have to approve, and it has to be done over the next 30 days, or you're going to be out and there will be no severance. So, I mean, it was very abrupt, and it's a very quick change in culture, but it has been very successful in getting those people who are bad customer service to our families who don't get it, or they're only for a paycheck, or just, whatever. They've just got this negativity that just is outpouring, and they can't seem to recorrect themselves. So it's been very dynamic, but it's been painful too. So.
Yeah. I think one thing that's really key too, when I was managing in the unit, you don't wait to correct a problem. You immediately recognize those that excel. I used to keep tickets to the theater in my pocket, and if I saw one of the aides or one of the nurses doing something, going that extra step, I'd just go hand them a couple tickets and say, great job. But you have to be consistent both ways. I would very often take someone off the floor and into my office, and we would write up a contract, and I would say, this is staying in my drawer for 30 days. In 30 days, if I don't see a repeat, I'll tear it up and it's forgotten. It's up to you. But you really can't wait until it's been going on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then come down on someone and say, well, you're not doing your job. Because then it's, well, what have I done?
So Billy, and all of us, this is leadership, and it takes trust, and it takes investing yourself in the organization and the employee. That's stressful, that's hard, and a lot of us didn't grow up having that modeled by our parents or whomever. So one question is, how do we help employees not burn out, but really how does everybody in this room stay fresh and alive? Because what has been described takes effort, and it's hard, and it's personal, because the employees aren't inventory. Right? And so when they're not performing, it's gut-wrenching, and you carry that home. So part of what our panel wanted to talk about was preventing burnout, right? Now, we all kind of have ideas, but there's one fellow who's only spent one night in a Turkish prison who apparently has really studied this concept. Can you share with us and get us moving on how to avoid burnout?
Yeah, we are part of the recipients, we were the recipients of a $500,000 grant to study burnout among our staff for 2 years. There isn't anything in the literature, and so we'll publish, because we want, it's all the same family. We want you guys to be benefited by what we found out. So we did a survey to 453 of our field-based employees. We had an 85% response rate, which the surveyors said, what's wrong with your staff? Nobody responds at that rate. Well, we asked the same question. So we did that. The burnout is made up of 3 different elements, and if you want any of these notes or anything, I can send you results and all this stuff. You don't have to write it. But there are 3 elements, and there's a standardized test for each one. One is professional fulfillment, and for us, 38% of our staff are professionally fulfilled, and that's way better than the average. Think about that. That scares the heck out of me. 2, workplace exhaustion. 58% of our staff are exhausted, and that is worse than the average. The 3rd is interpersonal disengagement. How do I like my coworkers? For us, 20% of our staff are disengaged. That's much better than the average. our chief medical officer has said it well, in which he has said our staff will often say, it's the worst job I've ever had, I work my butt off, I'm exhausted all the time, but I love it, it's the best job I've ever had, I'll never leave. That's probably how many of us feel. So the point is, how do you create better balance? A couple of things. The work perceptions. Our people feel like they're fairly compensated. Work-life balance is very poor. There are opportunities for advancement, and they feel valued and supported. And these things that they've identified as the sources of burnout are their work, organizational issues, and I'm a part of it, I'm an exec, and then their relationships within the teams. So it's very complicated. We're in the process of writing all this up. We just finished one-on-one interviews. One of the doctors that's involved in this, none of them are employed by us, met with 26 or 7 different staff, did 1-hour interviews, and so next week he's going to present to the executive team on those findings. What we're doing right now, I'm just about done, we're rolling out a 10-minute, once a day for 6 weeks, yoga mindfulness exercise that has been tested and validated and has research on it. So we have a couple teams that are going to pilot that for 6 weeks, and we'll see if that helps or not. Some people aren't into it, some people are. Also, as of when we meet next week, we're going to begin to develop some organizational, not personal. That yoga thing is a personal. What can we do organizationally? And we're going to implement some, and we'll vary it by team. And then towards the end of the year, we'll resurvey, see if anything made a difference. And then next year, we'll publish all of this. So we're excited about it. There's nothing in the literature right now, and I hope it can be helpful. But again, I'm happy to share anything you want offline on our journey, but it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, this here's a couple of rules of thumb on this. Obviously, when you get rid of 8 to 5 hours, work that used to take 44 hours will magically be done in 35, and you just pay them for 40. And then usually we'll take the high performers that are hitting all the standards, perfect documentation, obviously productivity, and whatever your quality, retaining and all that. You take your 100%, and then we back it down and set the standard at 80% of that. Sometimes a little bit less than that, but normally that will be very achievable. We do that for all metrics normally, because not everyone's going to be able to be a high flyer.
So everybody needs to be able to sustain it.
Yes.
It's a marathon.
No, it is useless to set standards that they can't do every day.
Yes. But do we realize that applies to ourselves? Because while we know that's true, and we can create systems within our organizations to try to prevent burnout, one of the goals of SODO is to ensure that we stay fresh, right? So how do we stay fresh? How does anybody stay refreshed and not burned out in here? Emily, how do you do it?
I look at the internet a lot for ideas, and I'm pretty creative naturally, so I come up with an idea that I think I would enjoy, and I just do it, and so far, we've had pretty good success. The meditation really kind of surprised me at how many people were interested in it, and I have regulars come, so I like to do, different things. Like this month, the step challenge. Yesterday or the day before, I got a text from one of the guys. There was like 10 of them in the elevator, and they were going downstairs to go walk around the building and get their steps in, and I mean, that's awesome. They know that I'm here, but they're still thinking about it, and they sent me a text, and so just trying, new fun little things that just, liven up the day. We've got, a ripple effect award, that the idea is that one person has a ripple effect on the whole organization. And so everyone gets the opportunity to nominate the person that has kind of created a ripple effect. And they love it. It's a certificate, and we used to work at an office that had a ball field behind us. So the little mascot was this driller, stadium thing, and they sit it on their desk for a month. And it's a small thing, but it's really a big thing, and people that I've talked to have said, that's one of their, proudest accomplishments, at work, is getting nominated for that. And you get to see all the nice things that people say about you. And So, I mean, just doing different things and,
Keep it moving.
uh-huh.
And personally,
Personally, I think it's, again, being a founder of starting from nothing and trying to build into something, you gotta give yourself permission to take a break. I mean, I felt like it was my
can you say that
responsibility.
one more time, really
Yeah.
loud for everybody in this room?
Well, I think you gotta give yourself permission to take a break. Again, it was a big podcast listener. I was listening to a podcast it was probably about 4 months ago, and this guy was talking about his daily routine and what he does, and he gives, he basically, instead of staying late, I've always been a night owl, so I've twisted everything back so I'm not stealing from my family, because I'm a big family guy too, and so you want it all, right? So I just start going to bed earlier, getting up earlier, I've got time ahead, but when everybody gets in, so I can catch up about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and there's real productive time. And then I give myself permission to knock out about 3:30 or 4 and go to the gym.
Yep.
And so, talk about ripple effects. So when the boss comes in, and there's a ripple effect there. But when you feel better, I mean, that goes to every level. Then everybody's like, oh, okay, it's great, maybe today.
It is. You set the tone, don't you?
Yeah, you really do.
So Casey, you run every day in addition to checking LinkedIn to steal employees, right?
Absolutely. I'm getting caught trying to look up accounts payable stuff at a conference. So pretty much every day. So I get to the office anywhere between, don't hate me, anywhere between 3:30 and 4:30 is when I get to the office.
In the afternoon?
In the morning. And I run by the office. I'm able to get there and get at least 30, 40 minutes of solid work in before any of my employees are even awake. And then I'm able to go out and run. And then I'm back in the office an hour before they even show up. Yes, he does. He wakes them up. So, for me, that really is what opens up my day completely, because all the annoying daily stuff that I have to do is done before I'm starting to get interruptions. And I'm sure that works for people that do, extend their hours after as well. But that, for me, was the biggest change for me, was being able to have that uninterrupted time where people are sleeping, and I'm able to get the maintenance boring stuff out of the way. And then when they're actually physically present, I don't have to lock myself in the room with QuickBooks. I can actually go out and interact with the employees in a meaningful way.
You're probably going to call me a medical heretic. I've been a nurse for almost 50 years. You decide if you get burned out.
Heck yeah.
If you love what you're doing, if you look at the positive side of what is going on around you, burnout does not happen. It is an emotional letdown when people get overwhelmed and they allow themselves to get overwhelmed. If you're always looking at the negative side, this is bad, that is bad, I can't change this, I can't change that. Pretty soon, why am I here? I need to go home. On the other side, instead of focusing on what you can't do, focus on what you can do. The glass half full, and you don't burn out.
Because we design the processes. Honestly, we're the ones who set up our own job. So if you set up your job incorrectly and your employees always need you to answer every single question, then you fail.
That's like, we're hearing amens on that one.
Can I share a story? I mean, to tag on to that, I had a situation where I had a young nurse that came in. She was serving as a mid-level manager, and we worked through some personal problems that she was having at the house, and just try to give some encouragement along the way. And then she came in one day and just said, "Hey, here's my resignation letter." And I'm thinking, okay, I've heard of this working for other people, but I don't know if this will work or not. I just don't like that. And she was looking at me like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, no, I don't accept it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We just set forth a plan." And she stayed another year. She tried it again. She tried it again. I tore it up again. I'm like, you should know by now this doesn't work. I'm not allowing you to quit. And so, now she's like, we sit back and we laugh about that, because it's at those points when she was sort of ready to give up. She just needed somebody to, however you want to, this or this, just to encourage them. She was the one that I alluded to earlier that was a cancer survivor. So there was a lot of personal health issues that affected her marriage, which affected her kids and all that kind of stuff. And it was just this bubbling up of, I don't want to deal with that anymore, And so just having some encouragement to say, you can do this. You're more than capable. you know. So I was able to share with her. My own sister's a cancer survivor, breast cancer survivor. So I was able to connect those two, and my sister was able to give her just some life advice, you know. So I think that's another reason she's probably still around. And I'll see her every once in a while because she's in a different role, and I'll.
So I love this because this is like warm to everybody that's kind of an executive and alone a lot. You know, you feel alone. I have end of the hallway where I'm not around a lot of people, and I do all the crap that nobody else wants to do. So selfishly, on a daily basis, we have girls' lunch, which is Emily and Debbie and I. Man, if you get Emily and Debbie together in the room, I don't get to say much. I just drink my iced tea, eat my salad, and listen to them. And it's my relaxing daily. So I don't try not to wait till I'm too burned out. It's like, I'll call and say, we need a girls' lunch. And they're like, okay. And then they just talk, and I just listen.
You're buying, right?
I do have a question I would love to ask this group from a meaningful perspective. A couple of years ago, we had to find a very rare type of employee. And we looked at LinkedIn, and we couldn't find anything, and it was very frustrating. We called an executive recruiter, found us a person, and the person isn't anywhere near as good as the money we're paying them. So we need him, but he's not anywhere near as good as the money. And it's really frustrating to us. He's a really nice person, and you know, he's a mature, aged gentleman, and we are, maybe I'm getting very kind in my graying age, so yeah, I don't really have a strategy, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say that, but this is what this is for.
This is, and that's what I was saying. Once you should invest yourself, then you know the history of. I mean, people are messy. If they were just inventory, it would be easier. But people are people.
But it's a human. And I say hi to them every day.
Right, absolutely.
And I care about him.
Yes.
But I'd really rather not have him.
Yeah. So we've got 5 more minutes. Patrick, you going to say something, and then you, right?
I would love to have it.
Yeah, I do have a thought on that. With that, I've got a couple employees like that. I kind of set a year trajectory. Just cut the crap. We're going to be done within a year. So let's plan what that looks like, and then you can work through a scale down of a celebration, whatever. But it's kind of a cop out, but it does work. So I would throw that out. I'm just going to say, generally own your calendar. I don't have meetings before 8 or after 3. Allowed to be scheduled unless I approve it. I do regular dates with my wife, with my girls for daddy-daughter dates, and daddy play dates. It's a big deal, and I guard those religiously. So do it. Take that time. So own your calendar.
I was going to say, if he's not as good as the money, can you just give him a pay cut until he leaves? You're not firing him, but you're matching his performance with his salary.
Yeah. I feel like that, yeah.
Have you talked to him? Like, I guess for me, if I was that employee, I just want to say, like, kind of something. And like, it's not feeling like I'm getting the value, and like, as an employee, I would hear that.
Put the letter in the drawer.
To me, it's kind of like any problem, you do a root cause analysis, right? And I mean, maybe he's failing because of the way his job's structured or his understanding of the expectations that you have. You know, what is causing his failure other than his just lack of ability? But I think
he's not going to girls' lunch.
Maybe he needs girls' lunch.
Maybe he doesn't.
But one of the things I think a lot of times, you know, a lot of people in this room can manage their own calendars. They can go to lunch or work out during the day and shower and come back and do this and come and go as they please. A lot of the kind of frontline employees don't have that flexibility. And so they're not in control of their day. They're being designed upon. You're not designing with them and in conjunction. So I've found that something that always kind of raises employee morale is when you're making changes or when you want to do innovative ideas, really engage the employees from a grassroots effort and let them feel like they're being part of that change. You know, they can't totally, you know, I want to see one patient a day. Well, that we have guardrails, and so these are the things we have to manage within, but being involved in some sort of decision making or design, I think really brings value to the frontline employees' work life.
I just wanted to say to Mark, one thing that helps me, because I am the director of HR, and so obviously do a lot of difficult things and have had to terminate people who I really like as people, and it's just really hard when that happens. But to me, I think there's been a lot of examples in my experience where you're really doing them a favor even though you don't realize it at the time, because they've gone on to go do something else that they're much better at and that they're much more fulfilled at. And I've seen that come full circle where a couple years after I let somebody go that's been really tough and it's been really hard personally to go home and carry that with you, and then you see them be so successful in a completely different way, and you're like, if I wouldn't have done that, or if we wouldn't have made that decision, they wouldn't have gotten that opportunity. Like, I think just kind of keeping your perspective where it needs to be helps me at least to get through some of those things.
Last point, Chad.
Can I add to that? I mean, just a personal story. Most early part of my career was in Oklahoma, and I was sort of number 2 in charge of a decent-sized company, multi-state, and the new guy that it brought in as a CEO, it was in 2008 when the market crashed, and so that company, very large traded company that had different lines of business, primarily nursing home, but he was given directives to basically all the lines of business were given directives to cut the middle managers, to gut everything, and I was one of those guys. And so this guy came in, real strong believer in his faith and stuff, tears in his eyes. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to let you go. And you never want to be surprised. And I'm like, you know, but so fast forward to point, he's one of my best friends today. He was the only time I've been released like that. But I go on to, that's sort of the impetus and the drive to start my own thing. And, you know, through a move and all that. So we had to move the kids, move the family, couldn't see it for right there and then, like, what am I going to do, you know?
Right.
And so went through, continued to work for other people and continue to work on the dream, and then, you know, eventually that comes to fruition. But this guy today is a professional coach for me, and we talk once a month, and I pay him good money to talk to me. So I'm still paying, you know, so, but it's a good thing. So the good things can come out of that, even when you can't see it right there.
In conclusion, Andrew.
I was just going to say, but see, I think everybody, if they've been doing this gig a long time, will get in situations. A lot of it can be solved right up front, just structurally. With, again, I'll go back to the comp system, because most people, you know, they have needs. If it's tied to performance, then obviously risk right up front is minimized if someone, you know, isn't performing or anything like that. And but you know, like I'm just equating this to like the hospice, where you know you go in and you're going to transform the thing. And there's a nurse that's been there for 26 years, but was only doing 2 visits a day.
Yep.
And so that, you know, having that fair sense of equity and everybody pulling their weight, because otherwise it's going to drag all your hot dogs down. Yeah. And then they'll disrespect you as a manager if you don't do what has to be done. So I'm probably quicker than I should be on the, this isn't going to work out.
Okay, to our panelists, thank y'all.